Joining me today is Dr. Carl Ladd, who's the Executive Director of the New Hampshire School Administrators Association. You know, we were talking about the bill to increase adequacy. And you had mentioned that there's, Representative Ladd wants to start a conversation to get various sides together, as you said, to create a great bargain. What are the issues that need to be bargained out?
Well, I think one of the issues that really needs to be further defined, if you will, in the original Claremont lawsuit, the Supreme Court put forward 4 measurements. They said that the legislature had to define it, what an adequate education was. They had to cost it out. They had to deliver a system, and then they had to figure out a way to assess whether or not the schools were meeting this adequacy. And through their definition of adequacy, they deliberately kept the amount low. For example, they used a starting teacher's salary with a single health insurance plan as part of their base adequacy calculation, and that figure has not changed since adequacy was originally defined.
That was in the beginning of this millennia, or
Correct.
The end of the last millennia.
Correct.
And we have had wage increases. I know I voted on a couple of contracts in our district, so we have had wage increases. The floor has jumped.
The floor has jumped incredibly. They tend to try to follow the CPI, the Consumer Price Index increase, but they don't always do that. In 2010, when Bill O'Brien was Speaker of the House, all of that was eliminated, in addition to disparity aid, which was created to help those communities that have lowest property values meet the needs of their students. All of that was cut, and it was all lumped into what they call stabilization grants. And all of the property poor communities receive stabilization grants to help offset the fact that their property valuations are so much lower and they have a much harder time raising the minimum levels. As I said, all of that was eliminated during the O'Brien legislation.
So what I'm hearing is part of the grand bargain is looking at how we fund the system
And how we define
and
adequacy.
how we define what adequacy is.
Correct.
And are there other elements of adequacy in the definition that need to be looked at? Earlier you said, they cherry-picked elements. I would imagine athletics was not in there.
Co-curriculars not included. Part of the grand bargain at the time, if you will, capital costs were not included because at the time the legislature said we always pay building aid.
But the legislature has frozen
and
building eliminated
aid.
for
Correct.
years new building aid.
Correct.
I mean, the legislature I believe, has always met the obligation for people who have been in the pipeline.
Who have been
correct. Getting funding.
Correct. But there's nothing in there for the maintenance of the buildings. All of that was eliminated.
So capital.
Catastrophic aid, which was for special education students who may be placed out of district, very expensive.
Yeah,
in the past.
I understand that can be $80,000 to $100,000 a student.
Oh, it can be as much as $300,000 a student, depending on the severity of the needs and depending on the program in which the student is placed. So that amount that's been given to school districts has been capped and reduced. Used to be you got at least 80% of the cost above a certain amount. Now it's down to less than 40% that the state reimburses.
So is that shifting the cost to the taxpayers? Because that doesn't
Absolutely.
go away.
The bill still has to be paid. So if the state's not going to do it, it pushes it all down to the local property taxes. And the local property taxpayer has to eat the costs of all of these state obligations that are no longer being met. And for those poorest of property communities, the ones with the lowest property valuations, they have to raise so much more than anyone else. I know I was a superintendent in Northumberland. Grofton, if you will. Lowest median income in the state at the last census. And our property tax when I left, which was 2 years ago, was over $27 a thousand. And that's for folks who are on a fixed income to see those costs continue to drive up because the state refuses to pay its obligations. I think that it's an unsustainable model that we have right now.
And I've got to stop here and go to a commercial. But when we return, we're going to talk about the economics of schools. So please stay with us.